Hey guys. So I want to talk about Charlie Kirk's assassination. I debated whether or not this is something I should comment on because there were a lot of people giving their opinions, talking about it, mourning him, people who were close to him. And normally I reserve my first video of the week to be about news that you may have missed. And this story, unless you live under a rock, is something you cannot have missed. So I debated going back and forth. I thought about what to say in this video, and I'm going to keep it kind of brief. I'll give you a little recap in case you are kind of looking for a refresher or to go through some through lines. And at the end, I'll tell you about my personal experience with Charlie Kirk. I worked for Turning Point briefly in pre-pandemic times, and I don't know him as well as some, but I'd be happy to give you a little bit of insight. So let's get started. So for the recap, on September 10th, Charlie Kirk was shot on the campus of Utah Valley University. There was one lone gunman. There was only one shot fired from all the reporting that I've seen. He was struck in the neck and it looks like was essentially gone before anything could be done to attempt to help him. From other reports that I've seen, his wife Erica and his young daughter were in the crowd, as well as thousands of people who had gathered to hear him speak on the first stop of a Turning Point USA campus tour. Turning Point USA is known for working with college students and high school students to spread conservative values, to give information about what the Republican Party does, about values or people you can vote for. They used to always give out these stickers that say socialism suck. And Charlie Kirk started this when he was essentially 18. I believe he had wanted to go to a military academy, didn't get in. This is an old story, so I might be misquoting it. And eventually decided that college wasn't for him and got really involved, basically hustled to build this multi-million-dollar organization. And his tragic death at the age of 31 really shocked a lot of people. I think it's a mix of people who were passionate about conservative politics, who, read everything. They're on all the websites and they're on the Twitter feed and they're listening to all the people, but then also just moderates. I mean, it's been interesting watching people talk about this on Facebook who are getting the news almost delayed reaction, and they're also seeing the fallout. So one of the ugly things that came out of this were hundreds of people, thousands of people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death on their public social media platforms. It's not like anonymous accounts. It's people saying he deserves this. He spread hate. And for some, Charlie Kirk is a controversial figure because he is, he was a devout Christian. He was very pro-life. I know in the hours after his death, the news of his death was announced, that people were saying, well, look at him in this interview where he defends saying that his daughter, if she were, assaulted and became pregnant, would have to carry the baby to term. People didn't agree with his stance on immigration. People didn't agree with his stance on President Trump. People called him hateful. Stephen King was basically getting deleted off the internet because in one post he said that Charlie Kirk promoted stoning gay people, which is just not true at all. It got very ugly. For my part, I really equate this moment in history to the death of Martin Luther King Jr. And in some ways, to me, they are both civil rights activists, even though civil rights tends to be co-opted as a more progressive or left-leaning terms. And people are saying, Charlie Kirk is a conservative activist. But if you read memoirs written by people who worked in the JFK or LBJ White Houses, people who were involved in politics at that time, they talk about the way the world reacted to the death of Martin Luther King Jr. And in my personal opinion, Charlie Kirk was a better man. And so I think his death, which is in some ways similar because they are both advocating for cultural changes they would like to see happen in America, it hits even harder. I'm sure a lot of you saw Erica Kirk's speech. I thought that was really powerful. I can't imagine being in her position right now, both as a young widow. I think she's like 32, with two young children, but also now suddenly basically at the helm of this major organization that has, I've heard 18,000 requests for new chapters, and in large part because of her. To be having to mourn publicly while also represent a movement is just an incredible burden, and I pray for her and her family. I think political violence is wrong and leads to worse ends, and I don't think that the eye for the eye approach or anything like that is the path to go down. But I know this is an uncertain time, and a lot of people feel scared. I was on the phone with someone, and they were talking about, well, who will replace him or what comes next, and I feel strongly that the point of the movement that Charlie Kirk built with these young people is not to replace him. There will never be another Charlie Kirk. I mean, one of a kind guy. And I know I'm recording this before President Vance or Vice President Vance is hosting the Charlie Kirk show in lieu of Charlie Kirk. But those legacies that he built will go on even if his name brand is still on them, but he unfortunately is not participating. But the point of Turning Point USA was to raise up millions of Charlie Kirk, so to speak, young people who are passionate, who can meet people calmly and politely where they are in the political discourse and firmly stand in their beliefs while also just talking. And I think that's powerful. I wish that there were more organizations like that. It seems like there isn't an equivalent for young progressives in America, because it seems like they become hysterical and they always say, we're under attack. They use words that imply violence. And I am grateful to Charlie Kirk for waking a lot of people up to how just saying, well, I don't agree with you, calmly and politely, can make a huge difference in someone's life and in cultural discourse. So I worked for Turning Point pre-pandemic very briefly. I was like the most lackluster fundraiser you've ever seen. I really like talking to people. I'm not super great at asking for money, and turns out to be a $20 million organization. That's kind of a key component. But I met Charlie and would, I've been in several meetings with him, and I'll tell you this one anecdote. I worked, they had their Student Action Summit, which was in West Palm Beach in December. And there's always like a staff staging room where they keep badges and, whatever, just like behind the scenes stuff, signs. And I was in there. I went in after meeting with a donor one time, and there's people milling about, and they have the table set up in sort of a square because it's probably a conference room or something in other hours, and there lying on the floor is Charlie Kirk. I mean, he was I don't know for sure, maybe 6'3". He's enormously tall, and he had chronic back pain, largely because he spent so much time traveling and walking and moving and standing and talking. Like, there was always go. So he was taking a break from this major event with thousands of people at it, lying on the floor. But his break, this moment where he's trying to ease back pain, was actually having 3 different discussions about different parts of the organizations with the head of fundraising, with logistics, with an events person. And he's holding court in this moment that someone else would have maybe been like, I need 5 minutes to myself. And I would have respected that. But to me, it's like even when he was trying to ease his own pain, he was still at work. And I will always remember that moment and that leadership, and also sort of the casualness about this. I mean, a lot of people believe Charlie Kirk would have been the next president. A lot of people treated him like a celebrity, but it's pretty humble to lay on the floor of a conference room because you just need a minute to give yourself a relief from back pain and to continue to work. So that's what I'll remember Charlie Kirk as forever, a worker, someone who worked for his causes always. I don't know what's coming in the next couple days. Tyler Robinson, the alleged shooter, makes his first court appearance tomorrow. There's a lot of information about him. I'll probably save that for a separate video. I want this to be focused on just touching base with all of you. Some of you probably don't care about Turning Point or weren't interested, maybe aren't as aware of him, and that's okay. It can still be sad that a young person, the young father of 2, was taken what I feel like is prematurely, although, it's a time we all have to trust in God's plan for our lives. And I don't know why this happened, but I know that we are in a different America because of it, and that this has changed the way a lot of people approach their own lives. So if you're one of those people who saw what happened and thought, I'm going to spend more time with my children. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to do more for my community. I think that you're doing the best you can to honor someone's life, even if you didn't know them personally, and to make a difference in a country that desperately needs a cultural change. So I'm going to get off because I need to go record with QuarterCast. Thank you guys for all the support. I'll have another video up soon.